Welcome to News Edge, your sharpest source for daily headlines and deep dives. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay ahead of the curve. An Israeli airstrike has rocked Doha, Qatar, targeting senior Hamas leaders. The attack struck a civilian area, killing 6, including key Hamas negotiators and the son of a prominent figure. It's unclear if Israel eliminated its main targets, but the operation marks a dramatic escalation. Israel has now taken its fight against Hamas far beyond Gaza's borders. Israeli leaders have declared their intent to hunt down Hamas leaders worldwide. This strike in Doha is the first major demonstration of that promise. The move challenges Qatar's sovereignty and tests international law. Qatar, a central player in peace talks, was caught completely off guard. The attack has triggered a major diplomatic crisis with a key regional power. It sends a chilling message. Any nation hosting Israel's enemies could be next. The Middle East is now more volatile and unpredictable. The strike was carried out with no warning to Qatari officials, deepening the sense of betrayal. This was not just a military operation, it was a direct challenge to Qatar's role as a neutral mediator. Doha's quiet streets became a scene of conflict overnight. The event has fundamentally changed the war's dynamics. The conflict has entered a new, more dangerous phase. Regional tensions are at a breaking point. The consequences of this strike are still unfolding. The world is watching closely as the situation escalates. Qatar's response was swift and furious. Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jassim Al Thani condemned the Israeli attack as state terror. He declared that hopes for the safe return of hostages had been destroyed. The death of a Qatari security officer fueled national outrage. Qatar blames Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu for sabotaging the peace process. The government now questions its future as a mediator. Years of careful diplomacy have been shattered. Qatar's reputation as a neutral ground is in tatters. The leadership in Doha faces a hard question. How can they mediate when their sovereignty is violated? The negotiation framework has collapsed. With Qatar as the main communication hub, its withdrawal leaves a diplomatic void. The path to peace is now unclear. Qatar's sense of betrayal will make rebuilding trust nearly impossible. The peace process, once fragile but alive, is now on life support. The region faces a new era of uncertainty. The world reacted with alarm to the Israeli airstrike in Doha. Major powers like the UK, Russia, and China condemned the attack, warning it sets a dangerous precedent. The strike risks destabilizing the region and escalating the conflict. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer called on Israel to change course. Middle Eastern nations united in anger, calling it a violation of Qatar's sovereignty. The attack threatens to ignite a larger conflict and has further isolated Israel. The United States, Israel's closest ally, was not informed in advance, causing friction. Former President Donald Trump criticized the lack of coordination. Washington is now questioning Israel's strategy and its impact on American interests. The global response highlights a deep divide: Israel's military objectives versus the world's desire to prevent a wider war. Condemnation is about more than this single strike. It's about a troubling pattern. International partners fear Israel is acting without regard for diplomatic consequences. The atmosphere is tense and uncertain. The world is holding its breath, hoping diplomacy can pull the region back from the brink. The stakes have never been higher. The next moves could determine the fate of the entire region. Former President Donald Trump's reaction was immediate and sharp. He had a heated call with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, criticizing the strike in Qatar as not wise. Trump was angered by the lack of warning to key allies. This criticism is significant, coming from one of Israel's strongest supporters. Trump's concern wasn't about fighting Hamas, but about the strategy and lack of coordination. He warned the operation could disrupt regional stability and harm U.S. interests. The private rebuke adds political pressure on Netanyahu's government. Even Israel's friends have their limits. Trump's response signals a shift. Support for Israel is not unconditional. There's growing concern among allies about Israel's tactics and their long-term impact. Trump's voice carries weight in the U.S. and Israel. His criticism is a warning from a friend, not an enemy. Israel's actions are creating problems for its most important partners. The public disagreement highlights Israel's growing isolation. Netanyahu's aggressive strategy is under increasing scrutiny. The Doha airstrike has devastated hostage negotiations. Hopes for a ceasefire and the return of captives have been shattered. Qatar, the main mediator, says the attack destroyed any immediate chance for a deal. Negotiations have come to a complete stop. Families of hostages in Israel are filled with fear and despair. Hamas has hardened its demands, insisting on a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. With Qatar stepping back, the main communication channel is broken. The path to a negotiated settlement is blocked. Many believe Netanyahu's government is undermining the process. The hopes for a peaceful end to the crisis have been dashed. The fate of the hostages hangs in the balance. The international community's diplomatic efforts are in disarray. The focus has shifted from building peace to managing a new crisis. The hostages and the people of Gaza pay the highest price for this breakdown. The situation is more tragic and uncertain than ever. Despite the outcry, Israel staunchly defends its actions. Prime Minister Netanyahu declared that terrorist leaders have no immunity anywhere. Israel's ambassador to the U.S. vowed to continue targeting Hamas leaders globally. The Doha strike signals a new, aggressive strategy. Israel justifies its actions as necessary for national security, even at the cost of diplomatic fallout. The government claims a narrow window forced immediate action. Israel is prioritizing military goals over allies' concerns. Officials insist their primary goal is the destruction of Hamas's leadership. This stance highlights a deep rift between Israel's military strategy and international diplomacy. Israel is willing to absorb criticism to protect itself. The message: Israel will act as it sees fit, regardless of global backlash. This approach has damaged relationships and increased instability. The long-term consequences remain uncertain, but the immediate impact is explosive. As the world focuses on Qatar, Gaza's tragedy deepens. The war, sparked by the Hamas attack in October 2023, has caused catastrophic loss. Over 64,000 Palestinians have been killed. Destruction is widespread. Nearly 1 million people have been displaced, facing severe shortages of food, water, and medicine. The blockade and destroyed infrastructure make survival nearly impossible. Independent reporting is restricted, but the suffering is immense. Trauma and devastation will haunt Gaza for generations. International calls for aid continue, but relief is slow to reach those in need. The Qatar strike has diverted attention from Gaza's humanitarian disaster. Ordinary families are trapped in a cycle of violence and despair. Every day brings more fear and uncertainty. The world must not lose sight of Gaza's suffering. The crisis in Gaza is at the heart of this conflict. Any lasting solution must address the profound suffering of its people. The human cost remains the most urgent issue. The Israeli strike in Qatar has pushed the Middle East closer to the edge. Tensions have skyrocketed, with the conflict spreading beyond Israel and Palestine. The attack on Qatari soil is seen as a direct provocation by Arab nations. Regional security is more uncertain than ever. With diplomatic channels in tatters, prospects for peace are grim. Qatar's withdrawal as mediator leaves a massive diplomatic hole. Both sides have hardened their positions, prioritizing military action over negotiation. The momentum for war is overpowering the push for peace. The region is a tinderbox. The Doha strike was a lit match. The risk of escalation is real and growing. A miscalculation could trigger a much larger conflict. The challenge now is to de-escalate and return to talks. But with trust broken, that task seems nearly impossible. The path forward is shrouded in doubt. The Qatar airstrike has closed doors to diplomacy and peace. De-escalation is urgently needed but seems unlikely as both sides harden their stances. The international community must act to prevent further provocations. Finding a new mediator is critical, but few can replace Qatar's unique role. Without dialogue, the risk of violence grows. Hostages and civilians are left in peril. The core issues fueling the conflict remain unresolved. A lasting solution requires more than a ceasefire. It demands real political and humanitarian progress. Security for both Israelis and Palestinians and rebuilding Gaza are essential. The recent escalation is a major setback for peace. Trust is broken, lives are lost, and the region is unstable. The future depends on leaders' choices in the coming weeks. Will they escalate or seek a diplomatic solution? The world is watching, hoping for peace, fearing the worst.